Dzień dobry Państwu. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed last night's Heritage Parade and the concert. We have a very ambitious agenda ahead of us today. It's a tradition that the first speech of the day is delivered in the language of the host country. So for those of you who haven't collected the translation kits, now would be the last second to do that. And let me jump right in and invite on the stage the chair of the steering committee, Professor Jacek Purchla. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Panie prezydencie Krakowa, gospodarzu tego miejsca, panie sekretarzu generalny Organizacji Miast Światowego Dziedzictwa, pani dyrektor Centrum Światowego Dziedzictwa UNESCO w Paryżu, szanowni i drodzy państwo, to dla mnie wielka przyjemność i zaszczyt móc otworzyć dziś w imieniu Komitetu Sterującego 15. Kongresu OWHC nasze naukowe sympozjum Tourism and Heritage – Local Communities and Visitors Sharing Responsibilities. Ten jakże trafny i aktualny temat został wybrany przez członków Organizacji Miast Światowego Dziedzictwa na 14. Kongresie w Gyeongju. Turystyka, która w dużym stopniu wyrasta z kulturowego kontekstu dziedzictwa, jest dzisiaj, zwłaszcza dla miast historycznych, zarówno szansą, jak i zagrożeniem. Złożona relacja pomiędzy dziedzictwem a turystyką to dziś szczególne wyzwanie dla miast wpisanych na listę światowego dziedzictwa. Było to również wielkie wyzwanie dla nas, dla Komitetu Sterującego. Identyfikacja najważniejszych obszarów dzisiejszej debaty stanowiła pierwszy etap naszych żywych dyskusji. Jestem wdzięczny miastom, członkom OWHC za tak szeroką i inspirującą reakcję na 4 zaproponowane przez Kraków wątki dyskusji. Stanęliśmy przed trudnym dylematem wyboru. Owocem naszej pracy będzie za chwilę prezentacja doświadczeń aż 12 miast z obu Ameryk, Azji i Pacyfiku oraz Europy. Wprowadzenie do naszego sympozjum i do poszczególnych sesji wygłoszą znakomici eksperci, którym już teraz chciałbym bardzo podziękować za ich mądrość, zaangażowanie i za niezawodną obecność. Przed 2 laty miałem w tym miejscu zaszczyt przewodniczyć 41. sesji Komitetu Światowego Dziedzictwa UNESCO. Krakowska sesja została zapamiętana jako otwarcie na dialog pomiędzy rządami państw stron konwencji a społeczeństwem obywatelskim, samorządami i organizacjami pozarządowymi. Widać bowiem coraz wyraźniej, że skuteczna ochrona skarbów dziedzictwa kulturalnego i naturalnego nie jest możliwa w oderwaniu od lokalnych społeczności aktywnie zaangażowanych w opiekę nad nimi. Bo dziedzictwo to my, jego użytkownicy. Wspólna odpowiedzialność w tytule naszego sympozjum odzwierciedla zwiększenie zaangażowania lokalnych społeczności w globalną debatę na temat dziedzictwa. Cieszę się, że w tych dniach ta dyskusja będzie się toczyć w tym miejscu i to z udziałem Was, najbardziej zaangażowanych i odpowiedzialnych przedstawicieli miast historycznych. Autentyczność stanowiąca o wartości dziedzictwa jest dzisiaj także poddawana konfrontacji z globalizacją i urbanalizacją przestrzeni kulturowej. Procesy uniformizacji zagrażają dziedzictwu, ale i wzmacniają jego wartość i znaczenie, również w wymiarze rynkowym, bo lokalność staje się wobec globalizacji wartością samą w sobie. Kraków jest od 200 lat polskim laboratorium myśli konserwatorskiej i pietyzmu wobec dziedzictwa. Wpisanie zabytkowego centrum Krakowa na listę Światowego Dziedzictwa UNESCO tylko potwierdziło wyjątkową, powszechną wartość tego miejsca, ale też skuteczność działań podejmowanych na rzecz jego ochrony. Jestem szczęśliwy, że dziś moje miasto staje się po raz kolejny miejscem globalnego dialogu na temat przyszłości naszej wspólnej przeszłości, naszego patrymonium. Życząc Państwu owocnych obrad, chciałbym poprosić o poprowadzenie dzisiejszego sympozjum Daga Lańskiego. Dag Lański to jeden z uznanych w świecie liderów globalnego dyskursu na temat fenomenu turyzmu i jego rozwoju. Ale Dag Lański to również wizjoner i osoba o wielkiej sile przekonywania. Dag, the floor is yours. I'm going to delegate the power.
All right. Thank you. We're not so far. Thank you. Good morning. Dzień dobry. Have everyone learned that one so far? Good morning in Polish? Can we try it together? I'll say it, then you say it back. Dzień dobry. Oh, we got it. Bonjour, bon dia, bon dias, sabakir. I think I got all the official languages. Distinguished guests, Mr. President, Mr. General Secretary, professors, mayors, I want to make sure I get everyone, vice mayors, ministers, majesties, excellencies, vice excellencies, deputy vice excellencies, what looks like the entire city of Philadelphia, and virtually, there we go, and virtually half the elected officials of Korea. As moderator, it is an honor to welcome you to the 15th World Congress of World Heritage Cities. You are the stewards of the world's cultural treasures. And for those of you who see this World Heritage designation as a marketing tool alone, I hope that others here will help convey the great responsibility and protective challenges that comes with it. Now, perhaps some of you are familiar with the story of the traveler who went to Greece. And he saw a monastery atop a cliff top, and he wanted to go. And so he walked around, and he found a basket with a monk. And he climbed in, and the monk offered to take him up to the top, pulling the rope up high off the ground, 100 meters off the ground. He looks down, and then he looks up, and he notices the rope is frayed. And there's only a little thread of a rope left holding on, and suddenly he becomes worried, and he says to the monk, "How often do you change the rope?" And without missing a beat, the monk replies, "Oh, whenever it breaks." And today, I think we want to use this lesson, and with these cultural treasures, we don't want to have responsive action. We want to have proactive action. We want to get out ahead of the problems before they occur and take advantage of these challenges so that they don't become catastrophic problems, especially when we're dealing with these World Heritage amazing places. Now, we have a full schedule of experts to inspire and educate and share new ideas to help you manage, protect, integrate your treasures into the living and breathing cultural cities that you represent. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our first keynote speaker. He comes from Barcelona, and I think he will agree that magnificent cities like Barcelona, they don't design themselves. Frances Munoz is an author and world-renowned expert of urban planning who will provide us with a new way to look at tourism and urbanism. And he has agreed to do this in exactly 25 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Professor Frances Munoz. Please take the stage. The stage is yours, sir.
Good morning to everyone. I promised to learn to say good morning in Polish by the afternoon. It's my honor, it's a pleasure be with you today, introducing this fascinating discussion. I also would like to thank very much this invitation and the wonderful organization we enjoying and the amazing festival and the activities we had yesterday. Thanks very much to all the team organizing for that, and a special thanks to Jacek Purkla for all of this. I have lost these 2 minutes, but I wanted to thank for this opportunity to share my views with you. I'll try not to talk too much about Barcelona, despite the fact that Barcelona, for me, in my view, is a very interesting lab thinking about global tourism today and its effects, some of them well-known, some of them very unexpected, some of them unintended. I would like to propose this much more general discourse. So in the 22 minutes I still have, I would like to propose this presentation on this concept, which in my opinion help us very much for understanding these relationships in between places, cultures, and the economy of tourism. When we talk about urbanization in terms of banality, we talk about urbanalization. And the idea of over-tourism today is something we need to face, we need to understand, because if we face things that we don't understand, our policies, our visions, our strategies, they would probably be wrong. So part of my talk would be just based on the better understanding of global tourism. Let's begin. I work in Barcelona with these two research platforms, an international master's degree on landscape and heritage. So we work with these two keywords. And then I also direct the Observatory of Urbanization. In our observatory, we try to identify future trends for cities and regions. We also focus on so many different types of landscapes and heritage. This is a very good example of ordinary heritage, dealing with all these functional elements that they have lost the previous value they used to have. And we organize international workshops on these issues with professors, students, and universities worldwide. This is what I would like to explain in 4 hours. This is the time I normally use for this PowerPoint. We don't have this time today, don't worry. So I will just summarize these main points on, firstly, the idea of urbanalization, the urban form in the global age, the idea of digitalization, which is a major driver for understanding the way in which we are just interacting with heritage, urban heritage today. We are living in the era of real time, and this is changing so many different things. We need then to understand global tourism and how the touristic experiences has been multiplied. So these 3 first elements, they have to do with the diagnosis. And the 4th element has to do with the proposal, has to do with what to do, has to do with our own position, how to deal with global tourism in a different way. So I like to underline the power of ordinary landscapes, landscapes of everyday life, for preserving and managing, upgrading, updating, and giving value to local narratives. And this has to do with the power of local communities working together with experts in this new thing. So let's begin. We have 120 images. This means there's something like 5 images per minute. So I'm going to speed up. You are going to see all the images, but I will probably only make some comments on the most important of them. So when we talk about the urbanization, we talk about this kind of a copy and paste urbanism. This is the book, but I have just summarized the book in 3 pages, and you have it in English. I have provided the organization with this short article in which urbanization is helping for understanding the touristification of places. Tourists go home. This is something we can see in so many corners in Barcelona. So this is a material that, in the case you would like, is just available. Urbanization has to do with something I like to call as the Pantone landscapes. The Pantone is this highly predictable code for controlling colors. We can find urbanization everywhere around us, in the way in which waterfronts they have been renovated in the majority of cities in the world, particularly in Europe, from Liverpool to Barcelona, from Genoa to Antwerp. We find urbanization in suburban landscapes, in the urban sprawl area. We find it in the brandified urban retail spaces. We find it even in the functional spaces that we use in the daily life in cities. The two images below show how children, they have changed their experience in the city. They used to use the streets for playing. Now they play the same games, but in these specific safe places we have arranged for them. This is just the last trend. This is the last modern, most upgraded element for playgrounds. So it's just a place in which one single children can play. So what is the negotiation? What is the interaction? So urbanization has to do with so many different aspects, but this is just one single slide with text in the whole presentation, which is summarizing my points on this. Urbanization has to do with this type of urban change and transformation, which is highly independent in regard to their geographical space. That's why very different cities, they can provide the same or very homogeneous type of landscape. But the second aspect is much more important for me because it's dealing directly with culture. Urbanization refers to this type of urban transformation and the urban experience as well, which is indifferent, and I like very much this word, it's indifferent to the anthropological place. So we have this kind of disconnection between place and image, between the character of the landscape and the things we can do in there when being tourists. Let me show you just this quotation by one of the most well-known architects in Barcelona. He was my thesis director and he was very inspiring for me. He wrote this in 1995, a long time ago, but he was clever when he was talking about this, the age of the easy reproduction of images. This is the moment in which we are taking so many useless pictures with our cell phones. And then we need hard work to organize them. It was much easier before, don't you think? In any case, the traditional images of places are not linked anymore to those places. They flow like any single data, like any single information in cyberspace. These two images we're going to see now is just kind of a summary of this point. This is an image of Venice, which is highly local. This is an image of Venice that you would need to take some time to find. So you won't find this image in your first visit to Venice, in which you spend 1 day and a half, because the first visit to Venice is just devoted to the highlights. This is a very simple, a very similar image in terms of composition. The composition is practically the same, but the content is just the opposite. We use airports in a most homogeneous way you can imagine, because otherwise we would miss our planes. You wouldn't be here today with a different design of the airport. So this is what urbanization is about. We have the capability for using places like the second image is showing, despite the fact that they can be absolutely different, as the first image shows. But urbanization also has to do with heritage and with the past. David Lowenthal wrote this magnificent book, The Past is a Strange Country, 1985. And he was clever enough to realize about how the past, nostalgia, the commodification of heritage is very useful. As you can see here in this quotation for markets, practically everything. We are surrounded by nostalgia. We are living the excess of nostalgia. We are a vintage culture. Maybe because we have these tools that they invite us to go that fast, we need to anchor ourselves to these contents. But this is a good news dealing with heritage. We need heritage much more than ever before. That would be my conclusion. But we need to be very careful with the heritage management. This is an image taken in Amsterdam Central Station. These people, they want to emphasize that the cheese they are producing is really authentic. So they dress like in the old times. They take black and white pictures. They write since 1974. But if you turn your head right, you would see that the packaging and the way in which the product they are selling is globally offered would be just the same you will find in Barcelona with paella. And paella and Netherlands, cheese in the Netherlands, they are completely different, but the way in which they are promoted is very similar. So underlining the authenticity of places, you cannot see the end of the sentence, you need to trust me. Underlining the authenticity of places, most of the times we've analyzed them. And we can find these processes in thematic cafeterias in which you see the coffee bags, and you know that there is no coffee inside, but this is part of the visual narrative. At the end, you are paying 20% more for your coffee, not for the quality of the coffee, but just for the bags. And for all this display that someone has prepared, prefabricated for you. So we are talking about this Pantone idea. But we can find this in outside places in the public space. This is Florence, a city that does not need any history. So we upload more history with this fake carousel. But we can find more examples that are very extreme. Two very extreme examples. Because of climate change, we are just, as you know very well, we are losing the best quality ice in the North Pole. So this means that in the future, we will be able to visit places in the Arctic easily. So these trends regarding thematic tourism, dealing with Santa Claus, they are going to be more and more present. So this is a very good example of how we use landscapes and heritage in this commodified way. And this is another very interesting example. We are in Spain now in 2011. This is one of the Spanish white villages. So white villages in Spain, southern Italy, North Africa, they are painted in white because this has to do with the adaptation of a community to a very particular climatologic conditions. So let me put it this way, nature creates culture. But this village was painted in blue, as you will see right now. The whole village was painted in blue, and it was because the people working for the company promoting this new film, Smart 3D 2011, they wanted to find a place in the world that would fit better with the village in which Smarts they live, which is a fictional place. This is particularly fascinating because during the 20th century, we have been seeing how consumption places, theme parks, resorts, they were just imitating the real. But in this case, we are looking for real places imitating the unreal, the fiction. That's why we need to talk in 1 minute about digitalization. This is how the whole story ends. I don't know if we have we have the text. So you can read it in between. In the meantime, I'm just serving myself a bit of water. So at the end, the final output has to do with global tourism in unexpected ways, in unexpected places. And if you go to Google and you write a smart village, you're going to see how the same people living in there, the same local community, they were contributing to this change. Let me insist in this point. The white color in the houses is part of the character of the landscape in these places. Let me speed up now a bit, because in regard with digitalization, I need just to propose this very simple game. I'm sure that this image is very familiar for you. So I would ask you, because I was looking for an image that would remind me what I was just facing every day in my computer when I was working. So the image in your left is real. The image in your right is fictional. But my perception of the real image is filtrated by the second one. So which of them is more important? In other words, maybe those of you that you have children, you have someone at home playing this video game, Assassin's Creed, like my 14-year-old son. He plays a lot to this video game. The landscapes you see in this video game, they are inspired by some topic canonic images of Venice and medieval Florence mixed together. My son is going to visit Venice this summer with all his friends and the professors in the high school. When he would see the real Venice, I'm sure that his perception of this heritage site is going to be filtrated by this previous perception dealing with the digital. And the third example dealing with digitalization and our perception of heritage is this one. This is a picture I took with my cell phone from this very local place in Venice, Campo de Santa Maddalena. But this was the picture taken with a normal mode. We also have a Mauro, we have Hudson, we have Xpro, we have Nashville, we have Walden, we have Hef, we have 1977, which is a particular mode that will take the picture with the imperfections of photography in 1977. So which of the images of Venice is the real one? Digitalization is posing all these questions to us today, and we need to understand them. Let me just take the 10 last minutes for just finishing the diagnosis and going to the proposals. So we need to understand global tourism better. Traditional tourism is based on some very key issues that you can see here. Particularly, I'm very interested in the third one, the temporal occasional frequentation. What we call today, not as tourism, but as the visitor economy. This is something important because we still keep the same word, tourism, to define phenomena that they have changed completely. They have nothing to do with what we used to understand when using the word tourism. So when thinking about the visitor economy, something which is very important is this continuous permanent frequentation. In my city and in other cities in the world, we have tourists every single second, every single day. And then you have, here you have just a summary of the processes we can identify when thinking global tourism today. So firstly, we have this acceleration of the types of tourism we used to have before. Yesterday, in our speakers, they were talking about the low-cost companies. So this is just definitely true. We have a multiplication and segmentation of tourism. Every single tourist would find a territory or a time to satisfy their experience. And finally, the touristic experience is the emotional consumption of a place through its landscape. If we take this into consideration, we can just propose this kind of a paradox. Today, any place can be a touristic place, and any touristic activity can take place in a multiplicity of places. So we have real unexpected impacts. Let me use 3 minutes to show you some of the impacts in my town, which is the best study case for me. This is the number of arrivals of tourists that they come to Barcelona by ship. Some days in a year we have lots of these ships in the city. And this is the first research we have done for the municipality of Barcelona, trying to assess about the frequentation of places in the city. In here you have the 15 cruise ships that they are visiting Barcelona the most. For example, Costa Diadema comes to Barcelona 53 times per year. This means 1 time per week, every single weekend. And the capacity in here is not considering the crew. Let me tell you that the crew in these ships is not just the captain and the people working with him. You have 15 people working with the cleaning service, 30 barmans, 35 people working with the activities the tourists they are going to develop, like dancing, like aqua gym. So there is a whole community, a whole floating city going from one place to another. If you take into consideration the final data, you have 422 operations and a total amount of more than 40,000 people. Please multiply with your cell phones after my talk. You will find a total population of almost 19 million people. And these people, when they visit Barcelona, this is the important point of the example, they are given 4.5 hours as an average to visit the city. So we have been tracing them in the city. We have been following them. And this is the first cartography that shows the places in the city in which cruise ships tourists they are visiting. As you can see, they are prisoners of the historical town, of the historical center. This means that we need to change our approach to the pressures that tourism can provide to the city. And this means just updating our knowledge. In the case of Barcelona, Barcelona has become the mecca for global skaters. Let me show you 2 maps. The places in which people, young people, they were practicing skate in the 80s and 90s. The circle is just surrounding the historical center of Barcelona. And this is the situation today. These young people, they come to Barcelona for studying, but they come to Barcelona because this is the place, if you are a global skater, the place to be. And they are not tourists, technically. They are visitors. We can just show more examples like new touristic experiences. We have done this work trying to see how tourists, they use mobility services in the city. So we have really offers for tourists dealing with any single type of mobility system, from segways to Ferrari driving experiences, as you can see at the end. So it's not surprising that local communities, they are against tourism. In the case of Barcelona, it's very clear that the neighborhoods that they are against tourism, that they are evaluating tourism as the first most important problem in the city, they are the neighborhoods in the second map, the green areas, the neighborhoods in which you have either Gaudinian architecture, Antoni Gaudí, either the neighborhoods in the waterfront, which means that some neighborhoods, they are supporting the negative externalities of tourism. And as you can see, the progress of the negative vision on tourism in Barcelona is exponential. 1.2% people complaining about tourism moves to 8.1 in 6 years. I don't have the data for 2019, but I can tell you that they're going to be, yes, even more extreme. What are cities doing with this problem? How cities are trying to manage with global tourism? We did this work comparing 16 European cities, and we found that it was interesting to check this double set of parameters. Firstly, the action scale, the territorial dimension, because you can deal with tourism at the national, at the global, and also at the local scale. And dealing with the local scale, you can identify urban policies, metropolitan policies. And then we found this kind of a pattern, these 4 moments dealing with the evolution of management in terms of tourism. Firstly, cities, they try to promote tourism. Then cities try to regulate tourism because they see the unintended effects. Then they try to retain, and they try to just restrict tourism when it's impossible. And finally, they understand that they need to use innovation and new policies for tourism management. In the 3 minutes I still have, let me just show you that we can do a really nice work working with heritage when dealing with these elements. We need to defend, we need to promote the landscape character, the heritage singularities through these keywords: innovation, creativity, sustainability. And I'm sorry, because the translation from the PowerPoint to PDF has not been very successful, so the text is not very nice to be read. But I would like to insist in these 2 ideas. We need to consider in heritage elements not as isolated pieces, not something to be framed, to be put into a bubble. We need to approach this really fascinating concept of the heritage landscape. And this has to do with understanding heritage elements in the city as a network, as an infrastructure. And this is particularly important for me because planners, you know, they use the word infrastructure for other aspects of the city life, like roads, like services. They understand heritage as something minor. I don't agree with that. I think that heritage is a major element constituting a new type of urban infrastructure, and we are the experts for that. So let me use one example and then an elegant conclusion, and then I will finish in time. This is one very good example of those historical neighborhoods that they have not been regenerated in Europe. The majority of historical neighborhoods that have been regenerated, they are corresponding to the noble part of the city, where the king or the church or the power, religious or political, were located. Those neighborhoods that they are equally historical, in which working classes, in which production was located, like tanneries. This is a tannery in Vic, a small town in my country, in Catalonia. In here, you see how the typology of the buildings is completely different. Can you see how the third flat is just empty? This was because they needed to dry the leather. We have a narrative in here. We have the explanation of why this place is like that. We have been working with 50 neighborhoods in Europe that they are corresponding to this link between river and this typology of buildings. And as I said before, how to define the heritage project, approaching these ordinary landscapes. We have 4 main elements that I will explain to you another day. Because now I would like to finish in 30 seconds with one final remark. Why heritage is so important? Why we need to locate heritage at the center of the urban policies, in my view? Because heritage represents, in my opinion, the most important value that cities can offer today. Cities are the best place in which you are invited to change your mind, to change your opinion, because you are confronted with singularities, with diversities, with drops of difference. In the age of urbanization, in the age in which these differences are more strategic than ever before, we need to strengthen our views, we need to be strong to defend any single drop of heritage, even ordinary heritage, which can be useful for proposing these strategies. Working like that, we can propose the main value of a city, which is allow us to think about the past, thinking about the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for that. Fantastic. All right. Now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for the, need something there? I think that's a souvenir for the day. It's time for the first session, Communicating Heritage. Now, the way this is going to work, we're going to begin with an introductory speaker who's going to speak for 15 minutes, and then there are 3 cities that have been carefully selected, and they're going to have representatives here, and they're going to get 12 minutes each. You heard the little chime. That's the 1-minute warning bell. And I know how speakers think, as a speaker myself. We say, I'm going to be brief. I promise to be brief no matter how long it takes. But because we have this chime, I think it's going to keep everybody on schedule. I think it's going to be our magic chime. So what I'm going to do is, before we bring up the introductory speaker, I'm going to ask that the city representatives come up here. I'm going to introduce them now. If they could just come up and take a seat. Who we have first? We had Cuenca, Ecuador, who couldn't be with us today. But we do have Philadelphia. They have a great contingent here. And I'd like to bring up 3 people who are going to somehow put this all together in 12 minutes. We have, if I get this right, Zabeth Tiluk Singh, the Global Philadelphia Association. Why don't you come up and have a seat as I call your names up and join us on stage in these white chairs. We have Cynthia McLeod, the Superintendent of Independence National Historical Park, and Sheila Hess, a city representative of Philadelphia. And then we also have Monica Gottler of Regensburg, Germany. And these people will be making a presentation of their cities after our introductory speaker. Now, it's time for the introductory speaker. I know you will not see this in his biography, but I am quite certain the next speaker would very much like me to remind all of you that Liverpool is now home to the Champions League champions. David Fleming was the director of National Museums Liverpool from 2001 to 2018 and has seemingly been on every cultural committee and board in Europe. Among his many skills, he is an expert on communicating the importance of heritage, and he will be sharing his insights with us on this topic today. Please welcome to the stage, to kick off our first session, David Fleming.
Distinguished guests, no time to mess about, so I'm going to get straight into it. But many thanks for inviting me here to Cracow, fabulous city. Many thanks to Professor Perkler and to Agata for making all the arrangements. The purpose of an introductory address is to feed into a conference a few thoughts about the topic under consideration in the hope of stimulating some discussion. So I shall begin with a few thoughts on what we mean by heritage and how this relates to the public. Heritage is a jargon word. It's an imprecise term which has multiple meanings. To many people, it can mean this, sporting heritage. This is Liverpool against Real Madrid, although in fact it's Liverpool legends against Real Madrid legends. So instead of being, I don't know, Mo Salah and Sané, it's Dalglish and Rush and Co. This is more recent sporting heritage, Tranmere Rovers. You see the difference in size of crowd, for example. But then we have, to some people, heritage means musical heritage, and there's no greater musical heritage in the world than that of the Beatles. This is a statue in the centre of Liverpool. It could be artistic heritage. Again, shots from the John Moores show held in Liverpool. Or it could be personal heritage, the passing down of practices, characteristics from one generation to the next. It can also mean the character of a place, often, though not always, represented by its buildings or its built heritage, as adopted by UNESCO in its use of the term World Heritage Site. Heritage may be tangible or it may be intangible. It has come to cover all evidence of creativity and also the natural landscape. Now, Robert Palmer wrote in his preface to the Council of Europe's 2009 publication, Heritage and Beyond, and I quote Robert, "Heritage is not simply about the past, it is vitally about the present and future. A heritage that is disjoined from ongoing life has limited value. Heritage involves continual creation and transformation. Continual creation and transformation. We can make heritage by adding new ideas to old ideas. Heritage is never merely something to be conserved or protected, but rather to be modified and enhanced. Heritage atrophies in the absence of public involvement and public support. This is why heritage processes must move beyond the preoccupations of the experts in government ministries and the managers of public institutions, and include the different publics who inhabit our cities, towns and villages. Such a process is social and creative and is underpinned by the values of individuals, institutions and societies. We must continually recognise that objects and places are not in themselves what is important about cultural heritage. They are important because of the meanings and uses that people attach to them and the values that they represent." End of quote. According to the Khan Academy website, cultural heritage includes, and I quote, "traditions, oral history, performing arts, social practices, traditional craftsmanship, representations, rituals, knowledge and skills transmitted from generation to generation within a community. Intangible heritage, meanwhile, includes, and I quote again, "a dizzying array of traditions, music and dances such as tango and flamenco, holy processions, carnivals, falconry, Viennese coffee house culture, the Azerbaijani carpet and its weaving traditions, Chinese shadow puppetry, the Mediterranean diet, Vedic chanting, kabuki theatre, the polyphonic singing of the Aka of Central Africa, to name a few examples. But cultural heritage is not just a set of cultural objects or traditions from the past, it is also the result of a selection process, a process of memory and oblivion that characterises every human society, constantly engaged in choosing, for both cultural and political reasons, what is worthy of being preserved for future generations." End of quote. So the ordinary public always struggles to comprehend what it is about protecting the heritage that's so important, and this simple fact heritage professionals like ourselves should not ignore. I can think of 3 clear British instances. 2 of these involve the keeping of important heritage items by museums. The other involves the public uncertainty surrounding Liverpool's World Heritage status. First, the museum examples. About 3 years ago, I was president of the UK Museums Association, and I found myself having to explain to journalists why it was wrong. I wasn't even going to name the authority, but I see from this slide that there they are, Northampton Museum. It's Northampton Borough Council. I found myself having to explain to journalists why it was wrong for Northampton local authority to choose to sell an important item from its museum collections. You see the item up there on the top left-hand corner, which had been donated to the museum some 140 years earlier, in order to raise money to help with the authority's cash pressures. As far as the public was concerned, and I judged this largely from views held by the interviewing journalists, there should have been no impediment to the selling of the item as long as the income from the sale benefited the museum. Indeed, the local authority in question decided, under pressure from its local public and from professional agencies such as the Museums Association and Arts Council England, to earmark the anticipated income from the sale to an extension of the museum, rather than to use the income for general purposes, which appears to have been its original intention. As it happens, the sale proceeded, but it was handled so badly that the museum had its accredited status removed. This meant that for a period of years, the museum became ineligible for grants from public bodies, a significant punishment. My point is, though, that the general public could not understand the professional positioning with regard to the sale. I did find myself explaining to journalists that museum collections, especially those that have been donated as opposed to those that have been purchased, carry a high degree of public trust. Just suppose I found myself arguing that the museum was trying to sell personal items that had been donated to it in the expectation that the museum would keep the items safe forever, such as your grandfather's First World War medals. Then I asked, would your attitude towards a proposed sale be different? It was when confronted with this argument that the journalists began to see that this is a complex issue, not simply a case of the museum doing whatever it liked with its own property. A similar attitude was revealed a short time afterwards, when another museum asked the public what it would think if the museum, were to sell letters by the famous English novelist Jane Austen, which the museum happened to own despite having no other connection with the writer. In other words, the Jane Austen letters were seen by the museum as surplus to requirements, yet financially valuable, and the public agreed that the sale of the letters, while regrettable, was better than closing the museum entirely, which seemed at the time to be a possibility. The Ethics Committee of the UK Museums Association, of which I was then chair, was conditioned to resist the proposed sale, but in this, the committee was at risk of being entirely out of step with what the public thought. In this, the public was admitting that in times of financial pressure, museums ought to be able to raise money by any means it could. As a professional, I may object to this, but in so doing, I am out of step with public opinion. Is it not up to me as a heritage professional to explain more clearly to the public why I take the stances I take? My third example of the public believing that the heritage is negotiable is the vexed issue of Liverpool's city centre's World Heritage Site status. Liverpool Maritime Mercantile City has been included on the list since 2004, so not that long really. An excerpt from the city's inscription reads, and I quote, "Located at the tidal mouth of the River Mersey, where it meets the Irish Sea, the maritime mercantile city of Liverpool played an important role in the growth of the British Empire. It became the major port for the mass movement of people, including slaves and emigrants from Northern Europe to America. Liverpool was a pioneer in the development of modern dock technology, transport systems and port management, and building construction. 6 areas in the historic centre and docklands of Liverpool bear witness to the development of the world's major trading centres in the 18th, 19th and early 20th centuries. A series of significant commercial, civic and public buildings lie within these areas, including the Pierhead." This is some pictures from Liverpool, including the Pierhead buildings, the Liver building, the Cunard building and the Port of Liverpool building, which can be seen in the top left there, the dock area with its warehouses, dock walls, remnant canal system, docks and other facilities related to port activities. The mercantile area with its civic offices, its shipping offices, produce exchanges, marine insurance offices, banks, inland warehouses and merchants' houses, together with the William Brown Street Cultural Quarter, including St George's Plateau with its monumental cultural and civic buildings. Liverpool, Maritime Mercantile City, reflects the role of Liverpool as the supreme example of a commercial port at the time of Britain's greatest global influence. Liverpool grew into a major commercial port in the 18th century, when it was also crucial for the organisation of the transatlantic slave trade. In the 19th century, Liverpool became a world mercantile centre for general cargo and mass European emigration to the New World. It had major significance on world trade as one of the principal ports of the British Commonwealth. Its innovative techniques and types of dock facilities and warehouse construction had worldwide influence. Liverpool was instrumental in the development of industrial canals in the British Isles in the 18th century and of railway transport in the 19th century. All through this period, and particularly in the 19th and early 20th centuries, Liverpool gave attention to the quality and innovation of its architecture and cultural activities. To this stand as testimony its outstanding public buildings such as St George's Hall and its museums. Even in the 20th century, Liverpool has made a lasting contribution, remembered in the success of the Beatles, who were strongly influenced by Liverpool's role as an international port city, which exposed them to seafarers, culture and music from around the world, especially America. End of quote. So the city centre of Liverpool has been given the ultimate heritage accolade, a status coveted by cities all over the world as they compete with each other to be attractive to international tourists, the source of so much income and so many jobs. How on earth has Liverpool come to allow itself, which it has since 2012, so it was only on the list for 8 years before going onto the in danger list, to be included on the list of World Heritage in danger? It isn't in a war zone, and it's not at the mercy of climatic issues. It is the UK's only World Heritage site which is on UNESCO's World Heritage in danger list, which I imagine is a huge embarrassment both to the Mayor of Liverpool and to the UK government. It's certainly an embarrassment to heritage professionals such as myself who work in the city. Now, the reason that Liverpool's World Heritage Site status is in danger is, just as in Vienna, I understand, the threat posed by development, particularly development of a high-rise nature. There is a proposed development scheme for Liverpool by property developer Peel Holdings, known as Liverpool Waters, which contains a number of tall buildings. This scheme was given outline planning permission by Liverpool City Council in 2012, and the advice of UNESCO on the potential consequences of the proposal was disregarded. Liverpool's World Heritage Site was soon afterwards placed on the in danger list by UNESCO's World Heritage Committee, and I quote from the proceedings of that committee. The committee contended that the development will extend the city centre significantly and alter the skyline and profile of the site inscribed on the World Heritage list in 2004. Furthermore, experts argued that the redevelopment scheme will fragment and isolate the different dock areas visually. The committee warned that if the project is implemented, Liverpool may entirely lose the outstanding universal value for which it was given World Heritage status, end of quote. Now, since that time, both Peel Holdings and Liverpool City Council have been, in my view, more conciliatory, and the scheme's proposals have been altered in order to allay, or try to allay, UNESCO's fears. Nonetheless, Liverpool remains on the in-danger list as far as the public is concerned, and it's been led to believe that protecting the heritage is at odds with development and job creation. In the words of Liverpool Mayor Joe Anderson, under a newspaper website headline which reads, "Joe Anderson rejects UNESCO's call on putting a hold on new development." And I quote from him, "We've got to protect our heritage, but we've also got to make sure that our city develops for the future, creating jobs and opportunities and bringing in investment. If we don't do that, then our city will not grow, our city will not be sustainable, and that's why it's important that English heritage and UNESCO and all the conservationists understand that we're determined to protect our heritage, but we're also determined in equal measure to grow our city for its future." End of quote. Also in this interview, Mayor Anderson pointed out that there was a time 100 years ago when people had objected to the building of the very structures which today sit at the heart of the World Heritage Site. This video report came under an April 2017 Liverpool Echo headline which reads, I quote, "Where exactly is Liverpool's World Heritage Site?" End of quote, which stated that, I quote again, "Many think the whole of the city centre is included in the World Heritage Site, but that's not quite right," end of quote. Arguments in favour of job creation through the attraction of the city to tourists have not necessarily been heeded. The Echo website says that after having explained that the World Heritage Site buffer zone does include the whole city centre and the Northern Docklands, I quote again from the Echo, "Liverpool Council faces a balancing act every time it has to decide on a major development in that buffer zone or in the World Heritage Site. The city needs development and jobs, but if UNESCO decides those developments damage the outstanding universal value of the World Heritage Site, then we could lose our World Heritage status." One visitor to the city wrote in 2016, I quote him, "Apart from a few information boards, there's nothing to explain why this World Heritage Site deserves its inscription. Perhaps they did this on purpose just in case it gets delisted anytime soon." End of quote. And here we get to the heart of the matter. Liverpool has not celebrated its World Heritage Site status like many other places have, leading to doubts about whether the Mayor and the City Council really value the status, or whether the Council is so bent on development and investment that it's prepared to forego the status, sacrificing, as some see it, long-term employment opportunities, resulting from more pictures of Liverpool, resulting from new building schemes. It's clear that the Mayor of Liverpool and the City Council do not wish to lose the coveted status, and also that the developer, whose plans have been declared by UNESCO to be threatening the World Heritage Site status, is prepared to change the original plans in order to deal with criticism. Nonetheless, the issue continues to burn, and the issue for UNESCO of how to deal with cities that wish to develop their city centres remains, in my view, unresolved. Now, I could cite any number of novels or television series or movies to show how the public tends to be given its history and heritage. I could ask how so many British people think, for example, that they know a lot about ancient Rome. The answer is that they've watched all about it in movies such as Gladiator and Spartacus, and have watched various television series. I believe that the only other historical period that the general British public believes it knows as much about is the Tudor period. And here again I could cite the numerous influences of historical novels, movies and television. I think that heritage professionals should not overlook such influences, however imperfect we may believe them to be. And instead of obsessing over our own messages, we need to consider more carefully just what we mean by the phrases public history and public heritage. I would remind you of what Robert Palmer wrote for the Council of Europe. Heritage atrophies in the, and quoting Palmer again, heritage atrophies in the absence of public involvement and public support. This is why heritage must move beyond the preoccupations of experts in government ministries and the managers of public institutions, and include the different publics who inhabit our cities, towns and villages. I need to finish. I'm just going to show some pictures from museums. This is museum's idea of Mexican heritage. This is Belfast, Sarajevo, Chile, although I actually saw these posters in Mexico, and in Brazil, and in Austria. And then we have memory, monuments and memorialization, which also play a huge part in the communication of heritage, though it is perhaps easier to see here that memorialization is very much influenced by political and other issues. Two examples, Eva Perón and the legend of Eva Perón, which is very complex and difficult. You can't miss the memorialization to Eva Perón when you enter Buenos Aires. There she is. That is a gigantic building. It's broadcasting headquarters, I understand, and a statue. And then we have memorialization of Chiang Kai-shek, another conflicted figure in Taiwan. Here he is looking very friendly. This is what happened to all the statues. They were all gathered together in one of the ways of dealing with unpopular or formerly unpopular dictatorships. But another way of dealing with it is this memorial plaque to Chiang Kai-shek at the Jingmei White Terror Memorial Park. And this is, in some ways, arguably a more fitting testimony to the guy. And in Poland, just very quickly, I've now finished. Thank you. That's Katowice. That's the end. I'm sorry to have rushed through.
Thank you very much. That was a great wrap up there at the end. I really appreciate it coming on time. Thank you very much. Again, we're going to now bring up keeping this theme going. We have Philadelphia with the team of 3. I don't know how you're coordinating this, but you've got this all under control. Come on up. The stage is yours. Why don't you stay on stage? I'll jump in the middle here. Yeah. Why not?
Good morning, everyone. Philadelphia is delighted to be here. Yes, we are a large delegation. We really value the work that the OWHC is doing, and we're delighted to be here this morning among many old friends and many new also. My name is Zabet Tilak Singh, and I'm the Executive Director of Global Philadelphia Association, or GPA. As an association with more than 200 members across the Philadelphia region, collaboration has always been a key element of GPA's work to communicate heritage in an inclusive way. Securing Philadelphia's World Heritage City status back in 2015 was a team effort. GPA worked closely with partners across the region in city and federal government, business, the arts, and education to campaign for this prestigious designation for Philadelphia. Today, we continue to run our World Heritage City project on a collaborative basis. A public-private partnership, we bring together private sector sponsors and public bodies like the City of Philadelphia and the National Park Service, both of whom you'll hear from today, to promote and celebrate our city's heritage through preservation efforts and cultural events, education programs, community projects, and initiatives that position Philadelphia on the global stage. Every year, we and our partners hold 2 flagship events to promote Philadelphia as a World Heritage City. World Heritage Day, an official city holiday since 2016, and our World Heritage City Celebration Dinner. This year, we celebrated World Heritage Day together with the City of Philadelphia and the National Park Service at Independence Hall. Independence Hall marks 40 years as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2019, and this was a great opportunity to look back upon that legacy. This coming fall, our World Heritage Celebration Dinner will be a chance to celebrate our city together with our sponsors and raise funds for the World Heritage City project. We hope that representatives from our fellow World Heritage cities across the globe will be able to join us. Other exciting collaborative projects are on the horizon. The City of Philadelphia recently announced its Global Identity Brand Project, a consortium of organizations working together to develop a unified brand identity for the Philadelphia region. This project will ultimately build a strong, cohesive Philadelphia presence at local, national, and global levels, and we're very excited to be a part of it. Another upcoming project is USA 250, an amazing opportunity to celebrate America's 250th birthday in America's birthplace. Among our delegation is Danielle DeLeo Kim, whom I hope you'll get the opportunity to meet and talk about this. As the place where the Declaration of Independence was signed, Philadelphia will host the national celebrations for this landmark anniversary, putting our city on the national and global map like never before. With that in mind, I'd now like to hand over to Cynthia MacLeod, Superintendent of the National Historic Park, which cares for our city's crucial historic district, to speak about her organization's incredible work. Thank you.
Dzień dobry, good morning. Independence Hall is the epicenter of the creation of the two founding documents of the United States of America, our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. These documents are the touchstones for all kinds of stories told throughout Independence National Historical Park, where I work. We are proud that 40 years ago, UNESCO agreed with the National Park Service to designate Independence Hall as a World Heritage Site. The outstanding universal values embodied in Independence Hall are illustrated by hundreds of stories told throughout the 50 acres of all of Independence Park, shown here on the map in sort of a gray-green. The 30 buildings and sites of the park give diverse opportunities, a few in a dozen different languages, for historical vignettes and tours relevant to the founding principles of the United States of America. The park where I work enjoys a $23 million operating budget from the federal government, as well as millions in project money from various partnerships and federal maintenance programs. Equally important are alliances with other organizations that own historic structures in the park, promote tourism, or have philanthropic missions that are key to our success for many decades. Our park has its own large visitor center that we manage with a private corporation, which is also chartered to promote the whole region's attractions. We're just finishing a $15 million renovation of the visitor center, money that was partially privately raised. Another significant partnership development was the interpretation of the President's House site, only 1 block from Independence Hall and directly adjacent to the entrance to the building that houses the famous Liberty Bell. It's important to point out that this project in the federal park was initiated by private citizens who first secured financial backing from the city of Philadelphia. Then many of us worked together in fruition with additional state and federal funding. These relationships started out adversarially, but progressed to be productive with a great result. The President's House site today is an open-air interpretive exhibit that fascinates visitors night and day. Here's a summary of the story. Our country's first 2 presidents lived in a rented mansion in Philadelphia, while Philadelphia was the capital of our young nation for 10 years. This residence was also the seat of the executive branch of the federal government, although only archaeological remnants remain for us today. But there was a non-traditional theme here that we needed to uncover for people. The big motivation to interpret this site was to set in physical form an authentic place to share the paradox of freedom and slavery in building our new nation. You see, President and Mrs. George Washington brought 9 enslaved people from their farm in Virginia to this house in Philadelphia, a city that did not favor slavery. The site's story is highlighted by the successful escape of one young enslaved woman, Ona Judge, who was aided by sympathetic Philadelphia African Americans in defying the President of the United States. So you can see her symbolic footsteps running away. Confronting the concepts of freedom and slavery and emphasizing the paradox of the examples of our early leaders was something the park did only recently. Showing both the plight and the strength of enslaved individuals includes more visitors in finding deep meaning in this historic place. The story would not have been interpreted this way without the initiative of interested citizens. We try to look through many windows of history and collaborate with anyone interested in a mutually beneficial partnership. I am delighted to be here with representatives of the City of Philadelphia and Global Philadelphia who work with us and many others to welcome visitors, conventions, and city residents on big occasions like the 4th of July, to build our business community, and every day to improve what we offer in Philadelphia. The success of the collaboration is evident, and we are better for it. Thank you, Dziękuję bardzo, and I'm turning it over to Sheila Hess, City Representative for the Mayor of Philadelphia. Here you go.
Good morning. As Cynthia mentioned, I am so honored to be here, and thank you to Cracow for hosting. I am Sheila Hess. I am city representative. Now, the city of Philadelphia, we are a welcoming city with vibrant diversity. Now, our mayor, Jim Kenney, has not only welcomed all those from other countries and heritages, but our mayor has also created programs embracing our international communities to share diverse ideas and experiences. So just last month, Philadelphians voted to permanently make our Office of Immigrant Affairs a vital part of our city government, thereby serving our immigrant population well into the future through the civic, the economic, and the cultural life of Philadelphia. One of the programs created by Mayor Kenney is the Philadelphia International Unity Cup, established in 2016. Now, this is a World Cup Philly-style soccer tournament, which teams represent the countries of immigrants, which are about 52 on this team, living in our community. Another program started by our mayor is called the Philadelphia Honors Diversity. At City Hall, we hold flag-raising ceremonies for different nations of people living in our city. So we raise their country's flag, and it flies proudly at our seat of government at City Hall for several days as a powerful testament of how Philadelphia values its relationships with our international residents and our beautiful celebration of their heritages. Now, flags are a key element of our devotion to our place in the international spectrum. The city installed during the bicentennial in 1976 109 flags of different nations along our iconic Benjamin Franklin Parkway, right in the heart of downtown. These flags are part of our city's fabric, and the parkway attracts millions of residents and tourists each year to experience the vibrant and colorful appeal of these global symbols, showing to the world how we treasure this collective international heritage. And on this parkway, Philly hosts the best 4th of July party with the annual festival, Wow Wow Welcome America celebration that attracts local, regional, national, and international visitors. And there's no better place to celebrate the United States of America's birthday than in the place where our nation was founded, here in Philadelphia. So this year's 6-day festival offers more than 50 family-friendly, multi-generational events with world-class music performances, art, culture, food, entertainment, museum openings, 3 fireworks shows, and the best part of it all, it's all free. Now, the success of the festival is our unique model, rooted in the commitment of a public-private partnership, including government, local businesses, corporations, and our citizens. And everything we do is all about collaboration, which makes it a success. So bringing all these visitors here is our Philadelphia International Airport, and that is owned by the city, has worked diligently and effectively with our Commerce Department to attract new international airline routes. So 4 new direct routes have just been added in 2019 that include some World Heritage cities: Berlin, Germany, Dubrovnik, Croatia, Bologna, Italy, and Edinburgh, Scotland. And there's more to come. Our international visitors coming through the airport have increased every year, with 648,000 passengers just last year. So thank you for this opportunity to share our story with you about Philadelphia. We are so proud to say we are the first World Heritage City in the United States. So now it's your turn to visit the birthplace of America as we prepare, as you heard, the 250th birthday of America in 2026 with USA 250. And you can also follow the conversation and stay connected through our social media and learn more. But you don't have to wait until then to come visit Philadelphia. We want you to join us this year as we celebrate World Heritage on September 5th, and we can welcome you to our city of brotherly and sisterly love. So we will see you soon. We want you to come celebrate with us and visit Philadelphia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you very much, Philadelphia. Thank you so much. Now it's time for Monica to join us on stage. And I just want to say one quick comment. It seems a little bit strange for you who aren't familiar with this. I've been to Philadelphia with my kids recently. Why is there national park rangers in the middle of a city? And it works really well. You're used to them seeing them in a forest, but here in the city landscape, it works incredibly well. They serve as guides, informational officers around the area, and it's just extremely well done. Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends. It's a pleasure that I was invited to talk to you, and I want to introduce you to our visitor center in Regensburg. We made our visitor center a real meeting point for visitors and locals. And I would like to guide you a little bit through the process of how did we get a visitor center? What was the methodology? So let me start with just our first ideas. In the year 2006, Regensburg was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. And with the inscription, as you all know, there comes an obligation. The obligation first to raise awareness, to promote our World Heritage idea, and of course to inform about the outstanding universal value. So I think communicating our heritage, this is the main task. We wanted to get that visitor center, and we developed an action plan. I just want to lead you through that process. First of all, the idea was, where can we have that visitor center? Where can be a good location for it? Of course, second step, secure funding. That's always the major issue. We did apply for public money, and we got it. Secure funding, have the location, what then? Think about the content. What do we have here? How do we get an idea of what do we want to show? What do we want to present? How do we do it? So in Regensburg, our concept was to first think about the concept, about design. For that, we started with an official international bidding process, and we came up with a very experienced design office. So that was about only design, but the real content, that's what we developed together with a scientific team. That consisted of professionals from the University of Graz in Austria. They have a master's studies department there, which is focusing on exhibit and museum design, and they really did a great job. But we had now two external parties, a design office coming from a city outside in Germany. We had a scientific team with people from Austria coming to Regensburg. And then we had the question, how can we integrate our local professionals? And that's why we came up with funding an academic advisory board. This consisted of field specialists, and they guided us really through the process. That board embodied professionals from scenography, history, art history, and tourism, all coming from the city of Regensburg. So kind of in a process of getting these three parties together, we came up in the end with our visitor center. Let me introduce you now to the building and the location. What you see here is our World Heritage site, the whole area. More than 1,000 monuments and buildings in Regensburg are protected under UNESCO World Heritage status. You can see the River Danube cutting through in the middle, and a major bridge crossing that river. And it's exactly here where our visitor center is located. On the right-hand side, you see the building itself. It's a huge historical salt warehouse. That building offers us a lot of space. In total, 650 square meters for our visitor center. Now, what was the major challenge in developing that visitor center? We faced the challenge that a visitor center is not a museum, and it had to be attractive for visitors and locals. The visitor center has to be kind of a first contact point. It does not go deep into history, but it has to raise awareness, and it has to just offer something for everyone. So what's the major difference between visitor center and a museum? The visitor center offers no collections, no objects on loan or exchange with other museums, no academic staff, no scholarly inventories. But it's the task of a visitor center to maybe interpret singular historical facts, to give an overview, kind of a first impression of our World Heritage Site. And we put a real focus on the visitor. That means for us, how do we get it real and attractive point? That means easy access and free admission. Good opening hours, long opening hours. So it has to be just enjoyable and easy to get into that visitor center, and kind of a self-guided tour. So you can decide yourself if you want to spend 5 minutes or 1 hour. It has to offer all that. It has to address various senses and maybe motivate the public to acquire a deeper understanding of the World Heritage Site. And with a modular principle, we offer all that. This gives you an overview on our permanent exhibition, and just a little bit on the concept and design with a few photographs. So, as we are located in a historical building, it was a real challenge to figure out how the design can address that historical building. So we came up with a spatial concept, and 5 World Heritage themes were just made a focus. And they are shown in cabinets, that's what we call it. And we offer 3 levels of information in a kind of a zoom. So you can just really get deeper into history, into World Heritage topics if you want. But you can also wander through and get a first impression. We use multimedia tools, and we also just offer connection to museums in the city. That's done through these little links, as you see on the lower left-hand side, with these little papers. We offer direction to all the museums in the city so that people are really guided from the visitor center and can connect to everything in a deeper way. So this is the permanent exhibition on our first floor, which is more or less interesting for visitors and locals. And we are also offering on the lower floor of our building a modular exhibition space. And that now is the attractive point where we get our locals into that building with offering exhibitions, lectures, presentations. It offers space for up to 50 people. It's a multifunctional area, and with washroom facilities, food bar, cloakroom, it is a very practical thing that you can just use really in a multifunctional way. So this is really the attractive point for the city itself. I also want to talk about challenges. We don't call that problems anymore, right? We just call it all challenges. So what are the challenges that we are facing, that we were facing up to now? It's almost 10 years now that we have that visitor center. And it's always a problem with technical features. So the more technical stuff you put into it, the more problems you have in the end. So steady revision and updating, that's the constant topic for us. We have a very high visitor frequency, more than 350,000 people per year walking through that building. And that means wear and tear all the time. So maintenance efforts, a budget that you need for that. And of course, the exhibition has to be adaptable because also your city changes and technical features change, the requirements in maybe, let's just think about touchpads, the development in all that field. That always means you have to get up to date. So what we plan right now is a real complete revision of our visitor center after 10 years already. But well, we are happy that the visitor center is such a success. And I want to just point out and sum up with you the real success factors that we came up with. So why is it so attractive? Why do we have all these visitors? I put up there what a real estate agent would tell you. What's the most important thing? Location, location, location. Make it an easy to reach spot in your World Heritage Site. Keep it open as long as possible, free admission. Use an interdisciplinary team to figure out what you want to present. Don't offer everything, but focus on main things. That means the didactical reduction, and maybe a modular concept that offers a free guided tour that is also very successful. Various senses, that's always important when we talk about different age groups. And for sure, you all have your own ideas how your World Heritage Site can best be promoted in a visitor center. I'm quite sure that many of you already have a visitor center right by now. Maybe you are still thinking about getting one. I just can say it is a real great thing, and in Regensburg, we say we can only protect our heritage when we know and appreciate it. That's why communicating heritage for us is the main focus, and a visitor center is a great thing to do that. Thank you very much, and now I hand over to Doug.
Right. Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very much. I think you maybe forgot one thing. Have a seat if you don't mind. There was one thing that I've spoken to a lot of people who've run visitor centers over the years, and one of the things I didn't see on your chart, but correct me if I'm wrong, free bathrooms. The research I've done shows that about 50% who come into a visitor center are only there for the free bathroom. So it's important. I was going to do this. We're just going to take 1 second before we go to our coffee break. I know a lot of people are itching to get some morning coffee. I wanted to take advantage of the panel, and I wanted to take David, if you don't mind, you've now seen 2 presentations. Can you offer a few of your insights and reflections on the communication of heritage and what you've taken in here? And then maybe if we have a quick answer there, we can throw out to the audience for one quick question and then go for a coffee break.
I could. Yeah, I'll try. I think what impressed me about both presentations was the involvement of the public. And this is a really hard thing to do because the public knows very little. This is the problem. And there's a great movement in the modern museum world in general to involve the public in curating their own stories, which is fine up to a point. But I do believe that heritage professionals, we're here as professionals. It's our job to guide and inform all the time. So you don't hand over all the control, but you do involve. And I think this is a balance that I think was struck in both Philadelphia and Regensburg.
Excellent.
It seems to me.
Excellent answer. Do we have any questions from the audience before we go? Anyone for anyone on the panel or for David? Any questions? You guys really want your coffee? All right, let's do this. We got started about 15 minutes late. Professor, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do we want to keep it 15 minutes late, go a half hour and then start at quarter after? Or do we want to bring it in at 11 and get back on schedule? We have a compromise, 10 minutes past 11. So if you don't mind, come back here a few minutes early so we're all ready to go. 10 minutes past 11, back in here. Thank you very much for a lovely first session, and enjoy your coffee.